there must have been about 8 callers. I tried to get on, but I couldn't. But only one guy disagreed with what Tom Stimus was doing. So,
of course, the astonishing thing is, to the best of my knowledge, Tom Stimus lives in Bradenton, Florida, which is approximately 50 miles
well, I'm going to make a little
away from where
about
Singleton's
Stimus.
living.
But these stations are pandering to the to these beer-drinking people like you're talking about. You can see the guy on Allied Discount Tire. I don't know if you've seen the commercial, but he's standing there with a shotgun telling you better come in and get new tires. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, and Tire Kingdom Patrol, or whatever it is. What Cleveland Wheeler's doing with the beer drinkers and Hellraisers and everything like that. Now there's Tom Stimus beating on the hood. All these people are very successful pandering to these people that like that. And they're getting very successful. It goes to show what kind of people are around here. Now, I predict that this Stimus guy, now why should he care? He's all the way in Bradenton. Why should he care about
Right, the ad that he took out. The ad that he took out was in the Bradenton paper.
Okay, fine. Okay, this is what I'm getting at. How can a guy like Sonny Bono become mayor of Miami?
He isn't.
Yeah, he became, Dade or wherever it was.
No, Sonny Bono is the mayor in Palm Springs, California.
Okay, well, the point I'm trying to make is he's in show business. I mean, he has no business. I think this guy is going to run for some kind of office next year, mayor or something, Stimus, because there's no reason why he could care about that.
I beg your pardon. He gets his name all over the place.
Oh, okay.
I doubt very much he has political aspirations. It's just that when he offered the $1 million for somebody to go kill Gaddafi, he got tremendous national publicity. When he offered the $1 million to the Ayatollah Khomeini, it was, how about it, Jen? So now he needs a new gig, and he's come up with one, $5,000 to Singleton to leave town.
Well, he's got commercials all over the place. I mean, he doesn't really need any more advertising. I really think he's going to run for something in the next year. And they're all going to remember how much this guy cares about all the way down to Tampa, and he lives in Bradenton, and I think that's what he's up to. What other reason could there be? And all these people just seem to bow down to beer drinkers and Hellraisers and stuff like that all around here.
Joe, I thank you much for the input.
Okay.
Be good. Randy on a car phone. Randy, you're on the air at WFLA.
Hey, Bob.
Hi.
For good, bad, or indifferent reasons, this country has been founded on following, quote, the letter of the law, or the law of the land. The law of the land is that if you are convicted of a crime, be it tax evasion or rape and mutilation, and the law says that you have satisfied or paid your debt to society, that's the end of it. Now, granted, I wouldn't want him living in my neighborhood. All right, let's take this one step further. What Tom Stimus is doing, I think, I agree with you, is wonderful, wonderful free advertising. He's doing the same exact thing that Joe Redner does. I mean, he couldn't buy this type of advertising.
Of course not.
And the thing that I find absolutely laughable is Joe Redner. People are up in arms about Joe Redner, and yet he is using the law to further his own profitability. And here you have a Tom Stimus and Cleveland Wheeler, who is an absolute unadulterated jerk, who are going against the law to further their own self-image and profitability. I find it absolutely laughable.
Well, it is laughable, but it is also horrifying at the same time.
Of course it is.
And, Wheeler in particular should understand. In particular, as I said before, you can talk about anything. You can and should put all opinions on the air. Each and every single one of them for people to sit there and examine. But when the opinion is so clearly against mainstream thinking and you sit there and give it credence, when it is so clearly against the best interest of all the people and you sit there and give it credence, then you're doing a disservice.
Wheeler can sit there in the morning and chastise callers who call in and say, help me find my lost dog, and chastise them vehemently because the dog wasn't on a leash, and here he wants to go lynch a, quote, two-legged dog.
Yeah, of course, we also want people drinking on the streets in Tampa, too.
Where the hell is this man's ethics and morality? Here he knows. He chastises sports figures who don't live up to the image that the children would look up to, like a Len Bias or whatever, or these coked up pro football players. And here is a man who has the entire Tampa Bay market in his hand, and he is advocating this. Now, you call that something that a child should look up to?
No, I don't. Randy, I've got to run. But I thank you very much, my friend.
The WFLA, you got a chance to tell car dealer Tom Stimus what you thought of his plan to buy the rapist mutilator out of town.
Know what they should do to him?
What's that, Ralph?
He should have been castrated and hanged.
But not everybody who called the all-new expanded Morning News Watch agreed.
Registered, he's living. I think we should leave him alone.
And Stimus had a warning for Larry Singleton.
Larry, if you don't leave town, I'm going to become the biggest burr you've ever had in your ass.
Join me, Al Gardner, Martin Giles, Ted Webb, and all of us tomorrow morning only on the expanded Morning News Watch at 970 WFLA.
12:55 the time. I think about as much of that as I did about what Wheeler did this morning. Okay? Okay, now we all know where we stand. Ford Richie, Ken, you're on the air, WFLA.
Yeah, Bob, I know we got a short time, but the thing that really bugs me is if Cleveland is looking for civilized America and he calls what he did this morning civilized, then we really got a problem with definitions. Because what really bugs me, first of all, the previous caller stole a lot of the thunder by saying that what's being done is pandering to certain things to gain notoriety. Cleveland's using it for one thing and the car dealer using it for the other. Regardless of what this man did in the past, whether or not he's paid his debt to society, it is not very civilized to sit here and say that we should do such and such to him after it has been adjudged that he has done his time. And personally, I really feel that...
No, Ken, I disagree. I think that people who want to castrate him and hang him from the closest tree or want to be a burr in his ass, as Mr. Stimus does, deserve to be heard. There are no two ways about that, but they also deserve to be challenged.
Yeah, whoa. I totally agree with you because that's part of what our society is. Yesterday you were asking for the problems with liberal America, and of course freedom of speech is a terrible problem. But we've got to handle it. And while I will fight to the death to defend Cleveland's right to say what he has to say, but not on the air, not using the media to almost incite a riot. Now, I look at what he did this morning as almost akin to a Klan act trying to run people out of town, like what they did to the Ray kids with AIDS and a kid up in Indiana with AIDS, where the town got together to run out a, quote, undesirable.
Ken, you've absolutely struck the nail on the head. What it amounts to is the exact same tactic that the Klan takes. This is what ought to be done, but golly gee, that's against the law.
Yeah.
So don't do it. However, in saying that, in doing that, you are planting the seed in someone else's head to go out and do your dirty work.
And there's going to be some nut, and I use the word in its strictest sense, there's going to be some nut just far enough off his rocker to go out and do it. And everybody's going to say, oh, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll do it to the right one.
Yeah, exactly. But,
well, I'll tell you, if I was a short, little, slightly pudgy, gray-haired 60-year-old man with a beard, I'd be down the barber shop right about now.
Or I'd be carrying a 357.
Yeah, or packing my bags.
And see, that's what really bothers me. I don't know this Singleton guy. I've read the story. I've kept up on it. And, but he's one of several million felons that are living in the area, Bob. One of several million. Because according to what was on the news the other night, 2 million felons, convicted felons, live in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we're picking on this guy. Now, supposing this guy becomes, how should I put it, terrified of all the publicity of the, quote, burr in his ass that the gentleman was going to do. And supposing he decides to defend himself.
Yeah, against anybody that walks up to him.
You got
perhaps
it.
Looking for directions.
That's right. And so now we have a terrified man defending himself against anybody for people who are out looking for some bearded guy, and they're not sure who they've got. Boy, have we got a problem.
That's what it boils down to, Ken. It is precisely what it boils down to.
Bob, talk to you later.
Be good.
Bye-bye.
Only about another minute left in this hour. Obviously not fair to put somebody on the air for 1 minute, so I'll just tap dance here till the music comes on. As I said earlier, you can either comment on what I had to say in the monologue or talk about anything that's on your little mind today. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference to me one way or the other because I'm angry. I am genuinely angry. Genuinely. I truly feel what I heard this morning was a disgrace. And it's just one of many disgraces from a guy who just does not think about what in the hell he is saying, who does not think about the ramifications. In paradise, Let's see, we heard in the news we're about to enact a law where parents can force their minor children to have children that the children don't want to have. Some lady somewhere thought that she saw somebody who might have been Larry Singleton on the street, and he gave her the finger. Great news item. And a guy that almost every kid in town listens to in the morning tells them that there's too much civilization in America for his liking. Just a typical day. 99093, to comment on any of the typical goings-on. Jost in Clearwater. Jost, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Fine, thanks.
I feel sorry for Pendleton now. Not in the sense that I know
you mean Singleton?
It was wrong.
Do you mean Singleton, Larry Singleton?
Yes,
okay.
What I feel sorry for is that he's going to have to go probably through worse treatment now than he ever received before in jail.
I don't feel sorry for him. I don't feel in the least bit sorry for him, but it's still an outrage.
Well, no, what is sorry in the sense that once somebody is committed of a crime and they have served their sentence, they shouldn't have to suffer for it for the rest of their life. I mean, they can have the guilt conscience and everything. They know that they did it. But people shouldn't go around harassing them and for the rest of their life. That isn't really
well, people have every right in the world not to associate with anyone they don't want to associate with. That's, just one of those, if you'll pardon the expression, God-given human rights.
I know, but going up to find this guy and say how you feel and everything.
Or just opening up the phone book and calling anybody named Singleton and harassing them.
No, it seems to be an infringement on people's personal rights. But I know what I just think what he did was a criminal act to do and everything. But somebody shouldn't have to suffer the rest of their life for that. Once you do what the law has prescribed you to do, that should be the end. But see, I was watching the news last night and I saw Tom Stimus. And what I thought he was doing was great. I'm not that familiar with him. I just saw him offering $5,000 for this guy to get out of town. And I thought, hey, that sounds like a pretty good idea. But then I didn't know that he had offered somebody, however...
Yeah, $1 million to kill Muammar Gaddafi and $1 million to kill the Ayatollah Khomeini.
I thought to myself... Well,
which are illegal acts, by the way, under the laws of the United States of America, to go out and assassinate someone.
And I thought to myself... Well, what is this guy trying to pull off? Then I just heard on the show that he doesn't even live in Tampa. And I thought to myself last night, what is this guy trying to pull off? Is he actually trying to help the community, or is he trying to have this propaganda to help?
Yeah, I get a lot of people talking about Tom Stimus. Tom sells a lot of vans, sells a lot of souped-up cars, The
news doesn't cover anything like that, so I had no knowledge. I was just thinking to myself, and the news would never cover anything like that. We don't know what is in Tom Stimus' head.
Well, no, but we do know who Tom Stimus' main clientele are. We do know that for a fact.
Yeah,
a lot of young, beer-guzzling
You know what he does? It seems to me that he's a very intelligent businessman. But the way he goes...
By the way, I also should point out that Tom Stimus advertises on this radio station.
The manner in which he goes about attracting business is just not really... He uses an emotional thing, or such as real emotional subject, such as this touchy subject, to get people's emotions fired. And what he's doing is actually throwing more wood into the fire and just creating something bigger. And now people that can be associated with this Pennington with the similar last name, or that look the same, have to suffer for this. And, that just isn't right.
Gee, maybe Bill Grant will call up and offer $5,000 if Stimus will get out of town.
Yeah, and, it's just, there's something very wrong here. I think this Wheeler guy, he's more concerned with his own image and his own personal gains, really. And sometimes he gives his own opinions, and maybe sometimes he would like to influence the way other people think. He would like to shape them and have them to think the way he would like to, as he does. But I remember...
I don't know that that's a fact, but what I do suspect is that he just wants to be one of the guys and to be real popular, even more popular than he is. Hell, he is real popular, let's face it.
Yeah, I know. Well, when I was little, I used to listen to him all the time. I used to listen to Q105 all the time, and... I might not know myself, but maybe perhaps I was influenced by some of the things they said on the show, and I just don't think,
Well, where Wheeler went wrong, I mean, I sit here for a living and give my opinion, okay? So I'm not going to come down on somebody else for giving their opinion. But where he went wrong is whenever I encounter someone who is lucid and intelligent who disagrees with me, they get all the time in the world. I actually solicit such calls. I go out of my way for such calls. But Mr. Wheeler, when he has stated an opinion like that, encounters someone who disagrees with him, humiliates the person, and cuts them off cold.
Yeah, that it really isn't fair. It just gives a biased view to the audience, and, you know, then they take it in, especially these young kids, which are sort of, they're having against society, and they, you know, they don't want to be with their family. They're sort of against the crowd, and they like radical ideas like this. And it's just, I don't know, it seems rather uncivilized.
Thank you, Josh.
I've listened to this for I don't know how long now. And do you know what comes to my mind?
No, I don't.
It is just like the Bundy case, the Rays, the Boston Strangler, the Tate murder, and everything else. What did they do with it? They made movies out of it. They put them on TV special. Excuse me, that's my 100-pound Rottweiler puppy growling. And that's what's going to happen. This man says he's old. He has to live on Social Security. Blarney. He's going to end up making more money than you and I put together, no matter where he lives.
You're probably right.
And this is going to happen. And what makes it more notorious is all these people that are putting their 2 cents worth in are going to get a little bit of gratis out of it, too.
Well, they're the ones that are most likely to watch it.
That's right. And that came to my mind. And believe me, Bob, they're probably flipping a coin somewhere right now. What is most in the news? What is prominent? Where are the people that are most angered? And that's where they're going to go to get what they want. And believe me, as long as he obeys the law and he doesn't step over that fine line, he's going to sit back there and enjoy every damn bit of it.
Well, I frankly just do not understand. I mean, we just ran something in our 1 o'clock news that I do not understand. I have all the respect in the world for the people in the newsroom. They do a fantastic job. They do a great job. But why in God's name we ran a news item that said, in essence, some lady somewhere saw somebody on the street last night that she thought might have been Singleton, and he flipped her the finger. What in God's name does that have to do with anything?
I don't know, Bob. You know, people are paranoid right now. My God, thank God my husband don't have a gray beard or whatever. Thank God your beard is black and not gray and you're heavy set. And a big man like my husband. Otherwise, you're probably somebody you walk somewhere and poke a gun at you. These people are paranoid. There is something wrong with us, and Cleveland Weaver, if he don't like it here, get the hell out and go to Russia.
Well, maybe some car dealer will call up and offer $5,000 for him to leave town.
My Rottweiler.
Okay. Take care, Ann.
Thank God. Take care.
990 in Sarasota. Jeff, you're on the air, WFLA.
First-time caller. I couldn't agree with you more on Cleveland Wheeler. He's got to be the biggest geek in Tampa Bay, except for maybe Mason Dixon. But I listened to Bev Smith. I think it was Tuesday in the afternoon. She did a survey on sentencing guidelines in Florida. Mm-hmm. And Goober Bob likes to get on television and the radio here lately and say how the Singleton thing wouldn't happen here in Florida. Well, Bev Smith brought out that Singleton probably would have gotten 6 years here in Florida.
And been out in 3. I've been sitting here waiting for somebody to bring that up.
Exactly. And you know, and
I know a hell of a lot of people heard it.
That's right. But Goober Bob, you know, he's pushing this for all the publicity he can get. Mm-hmm. And Cleveland Wheeler, if he had any brains at all, he would be using the massive forum that he has to rally the people to get the laws changed here in Florida, not for a vigilante.
Exactly. I mean, everyone, and rightfully so, is utterly enraged that someone who could have committed such a despicable crime can receive such an incredibly short sentence. That is a justifiable bitch, if ever there was a justifiable bitch. But to focus in on the symbol of the problem rather than the problem itself is insanity.
That's correct.
And self-serving, and nothing more. You know, why in the hell didn't Tom Stimus offer $5,000 to the first legislator in the state who could get a bill passed that would prevent this from happening in Florida? That would have been something worthwhile.
There you go.
But I guess it wouldn't have gotten him as much publicity.
Okay. I only had one more thing.
What's that, Jeff?
Isn't a rapist mutilator someone that mutilates rapists?
I would think so.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Take care. Fred in Tampa. Fred, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hello, Bob. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm an auto dealer here in Tampa, an independent dealer. And Tom Stimus, I don't think, speaks for all of us. He's got a mind of his own. But obviously there's a lot of uproar about this, and maybe justifiable. However, I've heard heard a definition for the word pornography as being something that has no redeeming social value. And if this is an acceptable definition for pornography, I'd like to submit that Mr. Stimus' thinking fits that definition to a T.
Well, unfortunately, pornography is basically judged by community standards, and obviously in this community, that's, perfectly acceptable conduct.
Well, that's what I mean. But if that is the definition of pornography, I would say that his suggestion has no redeeming social value at all. In my opinion, if I know where there's one, I'll be glad to buy something for Mr. Stimus. If somebody can manufacture it, I'll pay for it. I would like to see somebody make a custom-made condom that would fit his entire body so he will not infect any more people in our area.
I thank you, Fred.
All right.
What will your reaction be if you are walking down one of your streets, perhaps you're in the University Mall, and you happen to see Lawrence Singleton? What are you going to say? What are you going to do?
I think this man knows he's a marked man.
All the news and what's behind the headlines with Al Gardner in the 970 WFLA Morning News Watch team, weekdays from 5 till 9 on News Radio 970 WFLA.
We strike again. I hadn't heard that one before. FLA.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I took a look at the Florida sentencing guidelines based on what Singleton was convicted of doing in California. Under the Florida guidelines, the least he was going to see is 17 years. And depending on how many prior convictions he had for other crimes before this happened, could have gone to life very easily. If you look in the grid and you look at sexual crimes, a sexual battery with great physical injury and 3 other convictions for assorted other felonies, comes out 17 to 22 years. If you assume like 1 or 2 prior serious felony convictions, it jacks itself up to life real quick.
As well it should. Hell, I don't think 17 years is enough.
I'm not arguing that, and I find it a little difficult to believe that somebody is just, in middle age is suddenly going to pull this kind of a crime without any prior convictions.
Right, exactly. I mean, just Singleton's age alone makes him unusual for that type of a crime. We're normally talking about people closer to 20 years old.
As a first offense, I just don't see it. And all I'm saying is that criticizing the sentencing guidelines on the basis that all Singleton was going to get was about 6 years under them is doing a disservice to the state and the guidelines.
What else can I add?
That's it. I just wanted to straighten out what appears to be a misconception started by Bev Smith.
Well, I wonder where the hell the information came from, because, obviously Bev talked with a number of people who supposedly had access to such information, and I wonder now if there are other circumstances that would have been taken into consideration in this particular case that would have brought it back down to the 6-year figure that she spoke of and mentioned.
If somebody looked in the grids at 1 felony conviction with none of the aggravation of the serious physical injury, it could have come out at 8 or 10 years, and then if you reduce it as, for gain time off for good behavior, it might have come out to 5 or 6. But if you look at what was actually done and what he was convicted for, and trying to translate it to Florida law, which is a little difficult for reasons I don't even want to go into, just the least is going to be set. The range given for Singleton, if there are no prior convictions, is 17 to 22 years.
Well, that is obviously, much more encouraging than 6 years, but as we've already mentioned, still not long enough. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, there's a whole slew of them. A lot of hate calls today? A lot of hate calls? Is that what's going on the phones? Cleveland Wheeler fans? No. Yes and what's the matter with the punks? They can't come on the air and defend him? Stimus even called. He didn't want to come on the air and defend himself. Pity poo, Tommy. Pity poo. What's the matter, Tommy? Can't you deal with it? You can only deal with people who say, "Oh, Tommy, I like that. That's a great idea, Tommy." What a jerk, Tom. Why don't you threaten to pull your advertising off this station, Tom? Steve in Clearwater. Steve, you're on the air at WFLA.
Yes, Bob. I think, in a way, Tom Stimus and Mr. Wheeler, they're doing the community a service because they seem to, it could be, with the influence they have, setting an attitude of no tolerance of rape or physical harm to people. That might be the other side of the coin.
You want to run that past me again?
I think the Stimus and the Wheeler people are setting an attitude in the community of that we won't tolerate people that rape people or cause physical harm.
When have we ever tolerated people in the community who raped people and caused physical harm? When have we ever tolerated that?
Right now. The toleration.
Right now.
Tolerating Mr. Singletary to be in the community.
His name is Singleton to start with, not Singletary.
Okay,
and it's not a matter of tolerating. He happens to be a citizen of this nation, and as such, is entitled to live any place he damned well desires.
By the law, yeah.
Yeah, by the law, because that's how we live, by the law.
No, not at all.
Oh, I see. We don't live by the law.
You know better than that.
Well, wait a second. Don't you put thoughts in my head. Don't you tell me I know better than that.
Oh,
the only thing that keeps the damn thing together is that most of us live by the law.
Oh, you've never broken the law?
I didn't say that.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure I have knowingly broken the law, and I'm sure there are lots of laws I didn't know about that I broke.
You're giving out double messages.
No, I'm not giving out double messages.
I think you're wrong.
What the hell did you say that was funny? Maybe I missed it.
Well, it's funny when you won't admit you're wrong.
What do you mean I won't admit I'm wrong? Where am I wrong, Steve?
The degree of tolerance is very high.
Oh, the degree of tolerance is for everybody in the community loves to tolerate rapists.
It's the interpretation of the law that has to do with the degree of tolerance. Mr. Singleton is not welcome here in the community.
Says you. Who in the hell are you to determine who's welcome in the community?
Why wasn't
Who in the hell are you to determine who is welcome in the community? First of all, you live in Clearwater.
As a member of the community,
You're not a member of the community.
Oh.
You live on the other side of the bay.
Oh, okay. That's intelligent, Bob.
No, it's a fact. Your hanging up was intelligent. Ferd in Tampa. Ferd, you're on the air at WFLA.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Ferd.
You slay me there. I'd just like to make a comment first before I tell you the good news, but, that's a thing that people don't understand. You play by the rules. If you don't like the rules, then we work together to change them.
Well, if you don't want to play by the rules, then you can't ask somebody else to play by them either.
Exactly, but...
That's what civilization is, Cleveland.
Yeah. You don't make up the rules as you go. If you don't like the rules, you work together to change them. And that's what should be done for that. But now to add a little bit of fuel to the fire, there's a local radio station that's matching Stimus' offer.
Really? Which one?
WQYK.
QYK. Country kicking radio, huh?
Hillbillies.
I'm astonished that this radio station hasn't matched his offer. I mean, with what I hear in the way of promos and so forth and so on, I'm absolutely astonished that we have not matched the offer. Because what the hell, we're making hay from it.
Yeah, so if I were to go out, if I lost my job, if I were to go out and rape and mutilate someone, then I'd get $10,000 and a ticket to anywhere and 6 months free rent?
Yeah, I guess that's the message being sent, isn't it?
Yeah, I wonder how much that Taj Mahal cost a month.
Yeah.
Jesus. But like I said, I just wish, and it's not just a Singleton thing, it's every, it goes down through the whole government and everything. If you don't like the rules, if you don't believe in them, then you change them.
This is America. You don't have to associate with anybody you don't want to associate with. Mm-hmm. That is one of the great joys of living in this country. You can shun anyone, including Larry Singleton.
Or Cleveland Wheeler.
Or Cleveland Wheeler, or Bob Lassiter, or anybody.
Mm-hmm.
However, to sit around and encourage people, either subtly or not so subtly, to take things into their own hands, to sit around and be so pompous and arrogant as to determine who will live in the community and who won't when you live 50 miles away or on the other side of the bay in the case of the last caller? Where are these people getting off?
Well, you know what's added a lot of fuel to this fire is that, the straight shooting chiropractor.
Oh, yeah.
These people are going to say, wow, look at that guy. He's a hero now. I'm going to listen to what Cleveland said.
Oh, maybe the straight shooting chiropractor will, go up in that neighborhood and, look for bad people on the street.
Hey, Bob, I'm going to Chicago this weekend. You want any sliders?
Sure.
Okay, I'll bring you back a couple of sliders from White Castle.
Dynamite.
All right, Bob.
Take care. And you can open your microphone in there. Tell me what this guy who purported to be Tom Stimus said on the phone when he called.
Who, Stimus?
Yeah.
Okay, he just said, basically, tell Fat Rump Lassiter, thanks for listening.
Oh, okay, great. Hey, great, Tom. You really have a way with words,
But, I live in the Forest Hills area, and I realize this man has a right to live here, but what can we do to keep the murderers and rapists out of our neighborhood?
What can you do to keep murderers and rapists out of your neighborhood? Not a damn thing. You're no different than anybody else. I can't keep them out of mine either, Adele.
Well,
I sure as hell wish they weren't around.
Well, I think if I were Singleton, I would take up these offers with the money and the free rent, and I would go to a little island somewhere and hang loose.
See, Adele, Adele, we're missing the whole point of this. You're enraged. I'm enraged. Tom Stimus is enraged. Cleveland Wheeler's enraged. Everybody's enraged about this, but we're going about it the wrong way. There's nothing that we can do about this particular incident. The only thing we can do as law-abiding citizens is to make damn sure it doesn't happen again, because the next SOB that pulls a stunt like he does won't get out of jail.
I agree.
That's the whole point of this. Instead of focusing on the real problem, we're focusing on a symbol of the problem.
Well, I sure would hate to be his neighbor and have my daughter laying out by the pool or something,
Well, I'd hate to be a neighbor too, Adele, and I feel very sorry for the people in that neighborhood, and I would assume with all of this hullabaloo that Mr. Singleton will try to find someplace else to live. He'll probably spend the rest of his life going from town to town to town to town, going through this in every town that he goes into. And I have no pity for him. I don't feel sorry for him in the least. But I'm very distraught at my friends and neighbors in the Tampa Bay area for not exactly catching on to what the real issue is, and for spending so much time and energy running off half-cocked in the other direction.
Right, when it's the laws that really need to be changed.
Exactly. Precisely. And then along the way doing damage by putting into the minds of people who aren't capable of separating fact from reality, fiction from reality, putting ideas into their minds, so that we might have another Singleton on our hands.
Who can I write to on this matter? What can I do as a citizen? I would like to do something in the legal realm of things.
Well, obviously you can write to your state legislator. Obviously you can write to your governor and so forth and so on. And these are all things that we should all do. Rarely do we. Actually, it's easier to pick up the phone and call them.
But calls don't count.
And we can rest... Well, sure they do. I promise you they do. They're logged. And we can rest assured that somewhere out there there's a legislative aide or maybe even an actual honest-to-God legislator listening to all of this, and he's thinking, well, gee, this would really make me popular if I entered some type of legislation. So in essence, some good is coming out of all of this hullabaloo. But not enough energy is being directed toward what we should really be doing. The energy is being directed to, oh, gosh, this is what I would like to do to Singleton, or this is what we should do to Singleton, or, gee, the system is breaking down, it's just not working. Well, if the system is breaking down, then damn it, we better fix it instead of just sitting around bitching about it. Listening to the very same people that you just talked about and how he admired them and looked up to them. They were gods, man.
That's right.
And so he knows that there are young, impressionable people out there listening to him. And he knows that there are people that consider him to be a god. I know he puts his pants on the same way. They don't.
Mm-hmm. Now, my daughter tuned in yesterday, and I heard all this coming out of it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I turned it off. I normally listen to FLA in the morning.
Well, there were two people that called up that I heard yesterday in about a 45-minute period. One was a young woman. I think the other was a young man, although it might have also been a woman. I'm not sure. Who, in a very, very polite, intelligent way, attempted to take him to task for what he was saying. rather than sit there and address these people. Well, no, worse than that. Actually, literally worse than that. He took his damn garbage truck sound effect to tweak my nose and played it over these people who were sincere as they could possibly be, who had something to offer to the conversation. Cleveland Wheeler was more concerned with pissing me off and not caring about what he was doing in the community. He was more concerned with pissing Lassiter off. That's absurd.
The man is very non-professional, and I used to think very highly of him, but I think he is extremely non-professional. In fact, I went so far as to try to call the program director or station manager over at his station. He was not available, okay? But I will try to call again, and I'm going to voice my opinion.
Thank you, Art.
Art, for supporting the intelligent reasoning of this Singleton deal. Tom Stimus, as I call him, I'm in advertising as an industry, but Tom Stimus is slimy. Cleveland Squealer is piggy. So that's where their intellect's coming from, and I think that's as far as they're ever going to get in their lives.
Well, I don't think either gentleman is deliberately out to do any great damage in the community. As a matter of fact, I'm confident they're not. They're just not thinking. They're just not thinking, damn it.
That's very, very true.
And they're both in positions of power and influence. Obviously, Wheeler a hell of a lot more so than Stimus. Or, yeah, what the hell, he insulted and slandered me to my producer than Stimus. I like that. Thank you. I hope you don't mind if I steal it from you.
No, it's yours.
Oh, thanks.
It's yours.
They're just not thinking, damn it. And they have a responsibility to think.
Oh, it's not good to rabble-rouse the troops, per se. And once you start doing that, you know better than the KKK, and that's exactly what it's like.
Well, Ken, that all depends. Let's be honest. I sit here and rabble-rouse all the time, but at least I try to temper it with a counter proposal, a counter idea. At least I challenge it. Yeah, sure, I solicit the lunatics to call me. It's what the hell you listen for.
That's the show.
But at least I challenge them when they call, as opposed to sit here and say, oh, hey, thanks for the call.
The yes man.
Yeah.
Well, you're not the yes man, baby. You do a hell of a job, and that's important. It needs that.
Well, I sit home and I really worry and wonder about, God, am I doing more damage than I'm doing good? Because at least I think about it. And maybe I do more damage than I do good. But at least I think about it. And I just don't believe in any shape, manner, or form that either of these gentlemen are thinking about the ramifications.
I don't think so either. I and 500,000 other people were shunned in 69, 70, and 71 when we came back from Nam. Shunned big time. I came back, I landed in Traverse in 69 of May, and they were threw rotten eggs at our bus, and I was a captain in the Special Forces. I've never forgotten that feeling. And it took until just a couple of years ago could I even talk about it. It's not fun being shunned. He maybe should be shunned, but not.
Yes, he should be shunned.
Give him his freedoms.
Well, yes, the man should be shunned. There's no reason under the sun for this community to roll out the red carpet or even the pink one. No reason under the sun. But nor is there any reason under the sun to give people ideas about how to deal with it that are against the law, that are uncivilized.
Agreed. You need to get Lionel on the air. He'll give you some good points. I don't know if he's called yet today.
Yeah, he's already come and gone.
That's a character. I know him real well. That's a character.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Say something to Lionel according to what he said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I usually agree with most of what he says, and he's usually very hard on the television media, which I understand. However, in thinking that the media did not understand what Tom Stimus was trying to do when they reported it is not true.
I believe what Tom Stimus did, as I told Lionel when he called, should have been reported by the media. But I'll tell you straight out, and I don't care how much trouble this gets me into, I think our using that as a promo for our morning news show, which is a damn good show, isn't bad taste. I'll tell you that straight out. I think it's an incredibly bad taste.
Well, the gentleman, the new guy you have doing the morning show, isn't a news person, so he often speaks that he's allowed to take an opinion, and he did. The way I feel about
which I certainly don't disagree with.
Pardon?
Which I certainly don't disagree with. His taking an opinion. He's allowed to.
Well, with what Lionel was saying about the media, he was so surprised people didn't understand what Tom Stimus was doing. I think everybody who reported the story understands what the bottom line is for Tom Stimus, but that doesn't make it not a news event that he's offering this money. It's still a news event, and it's not up to us to ignore it just because there may be some personal gain in for it down the road for Tom Stimus.
And again, coming back to what I'd said in the monologue, I believe firmly in my heart that the vast majority of listeners are able to let this kind of stuff roll off their back. They're not influenced by it. They see it for what it is. However,
That's exactly what I think, that most of the people who hear that, one of your prior callers said that he hadn't heard in the news account he listened to the day before the mention that Tom Stimus was a car dealer. I haven't heard any television station nor radio station leave that out. In every news article I've heard, they've mentioned that.
to the best of my knowledge, it's my understanding, I could be incorrect on this, but it's my understanding that Tom Stimus called his sales rep here at the station yesterday to tell him.
Yeah.
And, of course, the sales rep ran upstairs immediately to tell us.
People aren't stupid. They know that, but it's still a news event. For example, I work in the news media, and if someone from a computer company called me and said, I have a wonderful new computer out, I want you to do a news story on it, probably wouldn't. But if he called and said, I have an amazing new robot that's going to help quadriplegics and there's nothing like it out there, just because that company stands to gain from the publicity that story will get, it's still a news event. And so I'm defending the fact that the news media is covering what Tom Stimus is doing.
Oh, I think we should be, but I don't think we should be using it as a promo, to tell you the truth.
Well, it's being a news person myself, it just kind of grates against me, too. But then again, that morning show, like you said, he's not a news person. He's allowed to insert some opinion, and he's kind of, seemed to me he was taking the side of that was an all right thing to do, what Tom Stimus is.
I should also hasten to point out there are many things that I do on this program that the rest of the station disagrees with. So disagreements are all around.
Well, I am a first-time caller, and I enjoy your show.
Thank you very much, Karen. Do it.
Would you mind?
Not at all.
If you would accept it?
Sure, I will.
Because I see what you
Anytime.
do is right.
Anytime. His
We
turf
need
or
more
mine.
damn people like you in the world.
I mean, Cleveland Wheeler has called this program once. He was a fool to do it. I made mincemeat out of him and hung up on him.
Yeah.
Under the circumstances. Under this particular circumstance, I would not do that. Under this particular... This is a very serious matter, at least in my view. Under this circumstance, I'll go over to his place. He can come over to mine. He won't get hung up on. He can either come into the studio or do it on the phone. I don't care. But I'll take him on, because I believe I'm right.
You are right. You know, I disagree with things you say at times, but this is one matter that I agree with you 100% what you're saying.
Or if he wants to call in today, I guarantee I won't hang up on him.
Would you mind if I called the station and...
Do it and let me know what they say.
Okay, I sure will, Bob.
Take care, Greg.
You have a good day, though.
You too. Not.
Who am I speaking with?
Who you calling?
Bob Lassiter?
That's right.
Bob, I'm calling in regards to the maniac car dealer that we got down here in Bradenton, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been here about 15 years. I work over here to Tropicana, and I've listened to all this garbage for a number of years that we've had to put up with this guy down here. And what's going on with poor old Singleton, I just don't think is fair. The man's paid his due to society.
I don't see him as poor old Singleton, but I do see it as a very bad sign, a very bad indication as to the understanding of this community. What is the reality of life? And the reality of life is, you're right, he's paid his time.
Is that, I knew this guy when he come down here with nothing. I mean, he was nothing when he come here, and this old community just rallied him back with him and supported him, and one year he wants to take a life, and the next year he wants to save a life. I mean, I don't know where these guys coming from.
Well, apparently whatever he thinks most people who buy vans want to hear.
Well, we've made him a millionaire down here. And this guy thinks he's God, and he's justice, and he's the jury and the judge and everything now. It's just terrible what's going on down here with this maniac.
Thank you, John. Let's go to Gary in Tampa. Gary, you're on the air at WFLA.
Yes, hello to you. I just have to say one thing about Mr. Singleton. I don't know him, and I don't care about him. The only one thing about him, if he served his time, he served his time. Don't leave the man alone.
Okay, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Sally, have you not been along with us all the way? What can I say? Technically and in essence, it's an open program. So I'll just give you the telephone numbers.
Sad part to all this story, especially with Tom Stimus. He's made no offer to the victim. I feel that's a very sad commentary on the whole system here.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't have gotten us talking very much about him had he done that.
No, I feel...
And you bring up an excellent point, by the way.
Singleton, $5,000 and other benefits to leave town. He should make some sort of offer. He should be a man, and I hope he's listening to this. He should be a man and offer that young lady that had her arms chopped off.
Go on, challenge him to do it. Let's see if we can't part Tom with $5,000 of his dollars, since obviously Singleton's not going to take him up on it.
Yeah, well,
Let's make him put his money where his mouth is.
Collect for Gaddafi? Or,
exactly.
Khomeini?
Yeah, what the hell's wrong with $1 million for the young lady, Tom, huh?
Yeah.
The $1 million that you set aside for Gaddafi.
Let him be a man. Let him cough up $1 million. Paul, this is beautiful. I love this. Why I didn't think of this, I don't know. I'm ashamed. Thank you ever so much for bringing this up. But yeah, Tom, well, what about that $1 million you set aside for Gaddafi and maybe the $1 million that you set aside for Khomeini? Why not put it into a special trust fund and give the proceeds of it to the young lady who suffered at the hands of this pig? Be a man, Tom. Let's hear it. Thank you, Bob. That's all I've had to say.
Thank you, Paul. 2 lines open, both of them in Penal. I'd be much more impressed with Tom and his sincerity if he actually put his money on the line for something worthwhile. Cindy in Lutz. Hi, Cindy. You're on the air, WFLA.
Mr. Lassiter?
Yes, Cindy.
Hello. How are you?
Fine.
I've never had the pleasure or the displeasure of calling you before. That all depends on the outcome of this phone call. Let's forget about Tom Stimus for a minute, okay? Because it's obvious all he's trying to do. I mean, that was like a pittance of him offering a lousy $5,000, okay? Number one. He's doing it basically for publicity, and we all know that. Number 2 is, the whole week long, since I've heard about this, I woke up to this, mind you, the other morning, and I had my TV, unfortunately left it on. Well, I fell asleep and woke up to this, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. The man, how is it possible that he only received 8 years for such a crime that he committed like that?
How is it possible? That's what the law was in California.
All right, now, this is what I went through the other day with Mr. Norman also. Okay, the way I feel about it, okay, I have relatives who live in the general vicinity of where the man has moved, okay? I want to know why was he allowed to come to Tampa, okay?
No, Cindy, there's a real easy answer for that, because under California law, under federal law, the man is entitled to live wherever he wants to. He has done his time, and so therefore he's a citizen.
That had only given him the 8 years, okay? They should be the state to have him live there, in my opinion.
But Cindy, he is a citizen of this nation.
Not in my opinion. No
well, your opinion doesn't count, Cindy.
There's no way.
Cindy, unfortunately, your opinion doesn't count, because under the laws of this nation, as a citizen, he is free. Well, Cindy, I suppose the good folks in California might have argued, well, good God Almighty, the citizens of Florida sent us this pig. It's their responsibility and shipped him back here.
That's probably true, too. Yeah, I can't argue that point. But fortunately, I'm not from here, that's all I can say. But it's beside the point. It's just the idea that I just can't not, till this day, figure it out. I mean...
Cindy, there's a real simple explanation for it. There honestly is. The good citizens in the state of California are very, very similar to the good citizens in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. They don't like to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. And the good citizens in the state of California even went so far as to vote and pass a referendum, putting a cap on state spending, which also included a cap on building prisons in the state of California.
I'll tell you...
You can only cram so many people in a building.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, but my opinion also, with this prison system, the way it's set up, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I know a lot of people say that that's not the way it is. Well, you live there for a while. You live in your own toilet, stuff like that. I've heard about prisoners in prison, okay? I know people on the outside world who can't afford a VCR, who don't have the pleasure of that. You know what I'm saying? And yet they are in their... I mean, they now also have the pleasure of becoming married, having sexual intercourse with their
Cindy, that is not true.
That's not true.
No, it is not true. Not in the state of Florida.
Now? They are not allowed to marry while they're in jail and have wives?
No, there are no... Sure, you can marry and have a wife, but there are no conjugal visits in the state of Florida that I'm aware of. And there are no prisoners with VCRs in the state of Florida.
Excuse me?
And there are no prisoners with VCRs in the state of Florida.
Well, I'm glad for that, and I hope it continues that way, but there's a lot of other places that are like that.
As a matter of fact, the only prisoners in the state of Florida who have their own little television sets are the prisoners on death row. Mm-hmm. And the reason that they have them is not for their convenience, it's more for the guards' convenience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that they don't talk to each other.
Yeah. Well, it's just amazing because I had an uncle, unfortunately, about 28 years ago. And he, unfortunately, I'm not saying what he did was any more right, but I'm sure nothing could be as bad as what this man did. He probably... I hate to say it, but I would have rather have died myself personally.
The only prisons in this country, Cindy, that are what would be referred to as country club prisons are a certain group of federal prisons. And the only reason that they have those country club prisons that I can figure out, no one's come up with a better one, is because our ladies and gentlemen in the Congress of the United States of America know that from time to time they end up going to prison. And so they wanted to have a real nice place if they had to go. But it's just one or two. There's one here in Florida, Elgin Air Force Base, which is a federal prison, not a Florida prison. And I believe there's another one in California, I think, that are what we refer to as country club prisons.
God, I've been tempted for many years.
And they ain't for guys like Singleton.
Yeah, to go out to California, but not anymore. Not after. I mean, this is like ridiculous. Like I was going to say,
Yeah, poor California. We send all our wackos from Florida.
Yeah, that's true too. But you know, it's just no matter where you go, it's the United States of America anymore. I don't know what's happening to it, but something's going wrong somewhere. Because it's no matter where you live, you're going to run into problems one way or another. You know, we have our problems there. I'm from New York, so I know we have had a lot of problems up there.
Well, Cindy, was it a pleasure, a displeasure, or somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between, I would say.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Why don't he put her on a plane, bring her down to Florida, let her enjoy what we have here, the beaches and so on and so forth, rent-free, telephone-free, everything else for 6 months.
Gee, that would be certainly a decent thing for the man to do, and certainly much, much more productive.
I mean, now when I see his commercials on TV, I'll mash the mute button. But if it had been the other way around, that he was bringing the girl down here, then I'd leave him on.
Well, you see, obviously, the truth of the matter is, George, the product that Tom Stimus sells, the political views or the charades that Tom Stimus goes through have really nothing whatsoever to do with one another. In reality, unfortunately, Tom thinks that they do. You know, I certainly would not recommend to anyone that they not buy a Tom Stimus vehicle. Hell, if he's given a good deal and he's selling a good product, he'd be a fool not to.
Sure.
But Tom can't seem to be able to separate the two.
Well, I know that years ago, for an animal like that Singleton, he would have been taken out of town on a rail. He wouldn't have been put on an airplane and sent to some resort up there and given $5,000. Now I understand somebody else has put another $5,000 in the kitty.
Yeah, another radio station, WQYK, apparently.
Oh. Well,
again, you know, why in the hell didn't they give $5,000 in a lobbying effort to get more prisons built in the state of Florida? Something that would accomplish some good, as opposed to get them some fleeting publicity.
Man, they're working on it. I'm going to tell you. Things have changed a lot. And I'll say one thing. You have helped the people to wake up and see where the changes have to be made. You know, another thing. The Singleton family there, the brother and the sister-in-law of Singleton, you know, they must be going through some kind of a hellacious ordeal.
Everybody in this area with the name of Singleton is going through a hellacious deal right now.
They can't even go to the grocery store. They can't go anywhere without, they know they're Singleton. Probably they can't even get out and water their lawn. But undoubtedly, Singleton is going to take Stimus's offer and get the money and get the hell out of here, because he wasn't going to stay here too long anyway, I don't think. But if his sister-in-law is like my wife, she'd have done had his butt thrown out a long time ago. So, anyway, I still think the Stimus pulled the wrong deal this time. So, nice talking to you.
Yes, sir.
Matt, listen, Bob, I love your show, I love your program, but I'm an employee of Tom Stimus, and I want to say one thing. There's nobody got any right to condemn Tom Stimus' name when he was the only dealership in town, the only person in town that give a damn about this Valerie Gatocha, the police officer's daughter. You hear about that in Bradenton?
Well, I'm sorry, Mac. Just because you've done good works in the past does not relieve you of any responsibility for your foul works in the future.
Well, what I'm trying to say is all they want to do is pick on Tom Stimus because he came down here and he didn't start with anything. He's just trying to prove to people in this country that this is what you can make of yourself. You can really make something out of yourself. If you can.
No, Mac, I'm sorry. I must disagree with you, Mac. You know, when you offer $1 million for someone to commit an illegal murderous act, or when you grandstand and offer $5,000 for somebody who lives 50 miles away from you to leave town, and it's nothing but grandstanding. It has nothing whatsoever to do with jealousy of how he got started or how successful he has been. It's in poor taste.
Yeah, but people, all they want to do is they want to cut his name because they, you know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean, Mac, and apparently you didn't listen to a word I said.
Bob. I listened to you every day and ask you a question. How would you feel if this guy chopped off somebody that you, okay, say he did chop off some girl's arms after he done what he done, okay?
Oh, Mac.
How would you like it if he moved next door to you?
I'd probably giggle, if he chopped off somebody's arms that I knew. I would, probably want to give him a Congressional Medal of Honor and set up a trust fund for him. Oh, I'd be thrilled.
Tell me. Tell everybody on the radio.
I'd be thrilled,
if
Mac.
he moved next door to you?
I'd be thrilled. I'd be very pleased. I'd probably take over a line through my teeth. No, Mac. Apparently you can't tell the difference between sarcasm and lies.
Doesn't happen either.
Oh, I know that's not going to happen, but that would be the intelligent thing to do to address a very serious and real problem.
At least, but this is the problem that's staring us all in the face right now. This is what everybody's talking about.
Well, I know it's
what. Get this guy out of here.
But Larry, the answer is not getting Larry Singleton out of here. The answer is having laws and then therefore having the facilities to make sure that Larry Singletons never have to be released.
Of course. Of course, that's the long-term problem. But the one we're dealing with right now is this guy is in our community and the people want him out of here.
But again, we're missing the focus because as long as we harangue and harass and grandstand about this, that's that much longer that we don't address the real problem, and consequently that's that many more Larry Singletons that are going to be out on the streets again. And if Stimus, and if Wheeler, and if QIK, and if FLA were really interested in the problem, if the community was really interested in the problem, then we'd be addressing the problem, not a symbol of the problem.
I understand QIK did a poll yesterday morning, and like 95% of everybody who called in said, do whatever you can to get him out of here.
Oh, surprise, surprise. Well, hey, there's only one thing you can do to get him out of here. Build enough prisons to keep him.
But how fast, how soon is that going to happen? So
just as soon as we get down to it, because this isn't something that we just figured out yesterday, that we don't have enough jail space. This isn't something that we just figured out yesterday, that people who shouldn't be back out on the streets because they've committed such heinous crimes as they don't deserve to be on the streets are on the streets. We didn't just discover this yesterday.
I'll tell you one thing. If he lived next door to me, I would applaud these efforts to get him somewhere else.
Larry, I understand that. Honest to God, I understand the entire emotional situation.
Yeah, but you're saying these guys are all grandstanding.
Well, they are grandstanding.
They're grandstanding.
They are grandstanding, especially a guy that lives 50 miles away and that places his ad for Larry Singleton to see in a newspaper 50 miles away. That's grandstanding, man. And then he calls up our sales department to tell us. That's grandstanding. There's just no other way to look at it.
You don't think there's any good motives in it at all that they really would like to get this guy out of here?
No, I frankly don't. I really and truly don't. They're just jumping on the bandwagon to get their names in the paper so that, more people will listen to Q.
Has your radio station ever been guilty of grandstanding?
I think they're guilty of it right now.
In doing what?
I've said so all afternoon. I think, first of all, we are quite wrong
to be running grandstanding, isn't it?
Well, hear me out. I think we are quite wrong to be using promos, taped bits from our morning news show involving this, especially the one with Tom Stimus saying, I'll be a burr in his ass as long as he lives. I think we were quite wrong. We ran a news story, I guess it was in the 1 o'clock hour, about some woman someplace who thought she saw somebody who might have been Larry Singleton who gave her the finger. What in the hell does that have to do with anything? That's jumping on the bandwagon, man. There are no two ways about it.
So you don't support getting this guy out of the Tampa Bay area?
I wish he'd leave. I think that the man should be shunned. I believe that people have a perfect right to have nothing whatsoever to do with him. I firmly believe that.
But
I'd spit in his face. I'd spit in his face if I came upon him, Larry.
So we just sit back and wait for him to move on his own.
Unfortunately, Larry, if we want him and everybody else to play by the rules, then we too must play by the rules, or else the rules become meaningless.
Have you heard, is there any truth, I did not hear this myself, but I had heard from somebody else who listened this morning to QIK that they had offered a $1,000 bonus if Singleton would get a vasectomy.
I have no idea.